to the premiere episode, one of the premiere episodes of
premiere.
the Semi-Charmed Kinda Pod.
We love a Semi-Charmed Kinda Pod.
We love it. This is now the third episode that we're recording today, but probably the first episode that y'all will be listening to.
I'm so excited.
Which is very exciting.
Yeah. This one's a spooky one?
This is a spooky one. I figured I'd keep it spooky for Halloween. Why not? We're doing a Halloween premiere episode. Double premiere.
Love it.
If everything goes according to plan, this should be either one of two or two of two episodes that you're listening to tonight. So yeah, I wanted to keep it... It's very on brand. It's very on brand for the podcast, which... This is a podcast where we're talking about all things witchy and all things creepy.
Mm-hmm. Keep it weird.
Yeah, we're going to kind of split duties per episode. So there'll be episodes where you... What topics are you going to be discussing in this podcast?
This season I'm going to do true crimes that are related to craft or practice of some kind.
Love it.
Yeah, so witches that murder, basically.
I feel like that's like literally an investigation discovery show. We're gonna get a cease and desist. It already exists.
Or they're gonna hire us.
Okay,
manifest.
It's our IP. Back off.
Yeah, we should hone that right now.
Yeah, I'm saying. Okay, so then my episodes are gonna be... We'll try to keep them themed with the season that we're doing, but mine are gonna be a little more broad. They'll be cryptids, creepy stories, strange occurrences. We may do a couple conspiracy theories. But
I
yeah,
love that.
Those will be that's kind of the breadth of our topics.
I love that.
And I'm so excited.
Yeah. I wonder if people will want, when we drop episodes, whether people will want a Kyle episode and then an Ashley episode.
I have to imagine that people are going to prefer one over the other.
Yeah. Oh, but I mean, like, they drop at the same time.
Maybe.
One, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, where it'd be like two.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
That's in the deeds.
Keep loving us and we'll love you.
You're here, you're listening, and that's what we're thankful for.
We love that.
Do you have any idea what I'm talking about today? You have no idea.
None.
Do you want to take a stab in the dark?
You said it's Halloween related?
It's Halloween related, and it has to do with... Most of the time, these occurrences are occurring at nighttime, and they're sometimes referred to as nighttime knockers.
Oh my...
Do you know what I'm doing?
Yes! I've heard of these.
That sounds a little dirty when I say it.
Yes, but I know what you're talking about.
What am I doing?
You're talking about, like, the noises that you hear, like, in the dark?
No, that would be a good one.
You know
like,
how,
what
like,
goes bump in the night?
Or, like, Appalachians, like, they hear things,
yes.
but you're never supposed to respond.
Okay, adding that to my list.
Yes.
I want to do creepy things in the woods. We're doing... when I say I have a laundry list of topics that I want to cover. Laundry list of topics that I want to cover.
That would be... Yeah. Ew, nighttime knockers.
We're doing Black-Eyed Children.
Ugh, Black-Eyed Children could be the creepiest.
We're doing Black-Eyed Kids.
If you thought you saw it, no, you didn't.
I'm so excited to talk about this subject.
Yeah.
I think it's perfect for Halloween because, like... Kids knocking on your door in the middle of the night.
No. Am I going to sleep tonight?
I don't know. See, and that's one thing that they say about the Black-Eyed Kids. It's one of those, like, you talk about them, and then they come. They come.
That's also, like, Mary.
Literally that. It's literally that. So, one of those, like, try not to think about it.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so I want to start off by, I'm gonna probably read the account that really made it prolific. Okay. Some refer to it as the seminal story.
Ooh, okay.
But I want to first say that while this happened so the original encounter happened in 96. Okay. Abilene, Texas. Happened to this reporter. His name's Brian Bethel, and he's like a local journalist. So there's a lot of skepticism around this because he's already a writer, right? He's already already a wordsmith, right? True. So, but then the flip side of this is like, he's a career in the public eye. So does he not? Anybody like that has a little bit to lose going public with stories like this, right? Yeah. Like, you don't want to have fingers pointed at you and be
it's
the
like
town
a crowd,
loon.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, summer of 96 is when this encounter happens. Okay. He doesn't go public with it until 2 years later. We're in, like, the spring of 98. Okay. Before he, like, actually, like, posts to it. And it's believed that the first time that he posted, do you like how I'm just doing this all from memory? Like,
yeah,
when I say when I say I've been researching, I have been researching.
You're so good at this.
So, it's spring summer of 98 is around when, like, this story, like, goes viral. We don't even have the word for viral yet. Like, it's 98. And it's believed that he first posts in 4chan, of all places, right? Okay. If you don't know what 4chan is, I'm not going to explain it to you. It's a messy forum. It's messy. So it's one
like
of those
chainmail.
Yeah, and it's just like full of like I would caution to say that like the word incel comes from
Okay.
I'm not saying that like that was the first time it was ever used, but like do you get what I'm putting down?
So if you're not a millennial, you would not have any idea what we're talking about.
No, and you would definitely not want to get on 4chan. So it's also one of those things where it's like, is that true? Like 4chan users are always going to be like, I'm the first one to do that.
Of course.
So we don't really know. This was a kind of time when creepypasta. Do we know what a creepypasta is?
Explain.
Okay, so a creepypasta are those early internet stories. It's a portmanteau. It comes from copy-paste, right?
Oh, okay.
And that's initially what it was called. They were called copypastas.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they were like little... Were you ever on like Tumblr or Zanga even?
So Tumblr was like after my... like... I was on Facebook when you guys were on Tumblr.
Did you ever get swept up in MySpace?
So let's like keep it real too. I'm like 10 years older than Kyle.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
How old are you?
37?
I'm 33.
Okay, I'm old.
You're 4 years. If we round down, we're not rounding to 10.
You were on Tumblr. I was on Facebook.
Okay.
Yes, of course I had MySpace.
But you used MySpace, right? Okay.
I had my top 10.
So we're familiar. Exactly. We're familiar with a little bit of like blogging.
Of course.
Okay, so remember when you would get those, like, what was the one where it was, like, the babysitter's, like, she keeps calling the parents, and she's like, your creepy clown statue is creeping me out, and the parents are like, we don't have a clown statue.
Whoa!
You never heard that story?
No!
Oh, we're doing a creepypasta episode then, where I'm just going to tell you a bunch of creepypastas. So, these are basically stories, the name comes from, they're, like, what we would call clickbait.
Okay,
right?
okay.
These little stories, modern day urban legends, they're easy. There may be a couple paragraphs, maybe just one paragraph, easy to copy paste, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's also it's very easy for me to copy paste it. It's very hard to determine where this story came from.
Gotcha.
I love creepypastas.
Telephone of the internet.
Literally that.
Gotcha.
And it's a lot of times with creepypastas, I do want to say, we're going to have a little caveat about creepypastas. I love reading them. I love entertaining.
Yeah.
I think our audience will learn as we go, not that you're not open-minded, but I will entertain any kind of idea. I am like so open-minded. I'm there for it, right?
Like a Bosch.
Right.
Just kidding.
Right. You're gonna be my what, Scully?
Yes.
Yeah, you're my Scully, right?
Yep.
Okay. So creepypastas, while a fake is easy to spot, right?
True,
you read those stories and it's so outlandish, things are happening, and you're like, there is no way that this story is true. We're hitting on tropes from horror movies, we're hitting on like tropes from other stories that we've heard. You know, you've heard those stories where maybe you're along for like the first half and then something happens where you're like, this story did not happen, right?
Yep.
I want to say that like, take every creepypasta that you read with a grain of salt, because most of them, are going to be like, there are entire Reddits dedicated to like No Sleep. Do you ever go on No Sleep?
No.
They're all fictional stories, but they're supposed to be written like it actually happened to you. So
I feel like I would love this.
Oh, it's so fun. There's like a couple movies that have been spurred from No Sleep, because then like major production companies will like reach out and be like,
wow.
Can you actually take this story down, because we want to like can you get it out of the public eye, because we want to now develop it into a movie.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's happened to a couple people, and like, so it's a great way for like writers to like, you know what I mean, flex this or you like put things on display, right?
Yeah.
So take every creepypasta that you read with a grain of salt. But I want to say one thing about creepypasta in the day and age that we live in that I feel like often gets lost when people hear a creepypasta or they're immediately ready to like write things off. Okay. I feel like the internet, like, where are we here? Like, the internet is our modern day campfire. Like, if you want to hear those ghost stories, if you want to see, like, what strange occurrences are going on in the world, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the internet. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how we get in touch with the world. So I just want to caveat and say that, like, while I will... If anybody hears me do a story on this podcast and you're immediately like, I know that is a creepypasta, please reach out. Please reach out and like and let me know. But I also want to preface and say that just because you have heard of a story or you've come across a story on a creepypasta or like a forum that is dedicated to that, doesn't necessarily mean that that story's not true.
Sure.
Maybe it's just been propagated so much.
Yeah, that it's been changed.
Right.
Copy pasted.
So that's why I want everybody to take any creepypasta that you read with a grain of salt and really judge it based off of that the meat of that story itself. Because just because you've come across it on the internet doesn't mean that it's false. It doesn't mean that it's true.
Sure.
But it doesn't also mean that it's just like
I hope people, like, blow up your DM with their creepypasta.
Oh, please.
I hope there's so many creepypasta people out there that are like, have you read this one?
Now, I will say, please don't inundate me with creepypastas, because none of your creepypastas are going to make it onto the pod. Unless we do. Maybe that would be a fun seasonal. Maybe, like, one episode a season, I'll just do creepypastas.
Or we could do listeners' favorite creepypastas.
Yes, I would love to do that.
Yes.
But just know that my regular, day-to-day is most likely, I want to stick to, like...
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, this did happen. As far as we know, it did happen.
So they could email us their creepypastas
at
semicharmedkindapod.
I will absolutely say
at gmail.com.
That is the Gmail account. We will have it in the show notes.
I love that.
I want to hear a crazy story. If you have a story, I want to hear it.
Me too. I'm gonna let Kyle go through them first, so I sleep at night. But
yeah, that's fine. I do not mind being a filter. Please send them into semicharmedkindapod. You might even hear it on the podcast.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Right? Okay, so. Let's get into the meat and the potatoes of...
I'm ready.
What? So, you said you're creeped out, or you're just creeped out by the concept of them?
Tell me what
you know about Black-Eyed Children. Just so I know.
So, one of my favorite podcasts, Morbid...
Okay.
...does Black-Eyed Children.
Okay.
They do several different variations.
It's like a serial?
Yeah, but okay. I guess essentially it is like the creepypasta of Black-Eyed Children, of people's different stories of seeing Black-Eyed Children.
Well, so it's like a broad... It's kind of like a...
But a lot of people have seen them. Like, a lot of people relate to Black-Eyed Children.
They're more common than you would think. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of things that I'm interested to bring up to you about Black-Eyed Children, because I want to see your perspective of it from, like, a witchy standpoint. Because there's a lot of things that stick out to me in these accounts as, like, is that magic? Like, is that something that we don't understand?
Yeah.
Just in, like... We'll get there.
Cool.
Okay. So, and there's just a lot of, like, is it the same entity? Is this something masquerading? Is this... Okay. So, we are in summer of 96. Keep in mind, he doesn't go public with this for another 2 years, because he kind of doesn't know what happened to him at first.
Okay.
He also talks a lot. He's told this story... Keep in mind now, we're nearly 30 years out from this.
Okay.
He did reach a little bit of a period of time where he wasn't really talking about it, just because he'd gone on TV. I believe he did Monsters in America. He did an episode of them. He speaks about how he didn't really like how he had a bad experience with that show. I listened to a couple different podcasts because, like I said, he's not afraid of telling this story, like, and his story doesn't change, which is also really interesting.
What was his bad experience? Like, they dubbed it for, like,
they wanted him to say, they were, like, prompting him with things, and they were saying, like, you know, oh, weren't there, like, a string of disappearances in the area? Oh, weren't there, like, a string of murders? And he even says, like, at one point, he was like, I was the local, like, like, my beat was to cover, like, the cops and, like, what, like, the policing in the area, and, like, what was going on. Like, so crime was, like, my specific thing. Like, I would know if there was, like, a string of murders going on in the town. And, like, that wasn't the case. So can you please stop asking me that, producer of Monsters in America? Like, I'm going to tell you what happened, and that's what happened. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's also kind of, like, interesting that his story doesn't waver. His story stays the same.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's also really natural too. Some people look at that moment of that period of silence as like his story didn't change after the fact. And I would feel like maybe after 10, 15 years of telling the same story, like, and your story hasn't changed, and you've gone on multiple podcasts, you've gone on radio shows, you've gone on TV, go watch go listen, go read it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm sure you're going to reach a point where you're like, it's out there if you want to find it.
Well, and it's also like you get like defensive, right? Because if there's skepticism, it's like, I'm sick of explaining myself. Like, this is what I told you and this is what it is.
And like I said, remember how I said like there wasn't really a term for viral at the time? This was one of the first, like, this story went around the internet. So of course, matter of public opinion. And what are most people going to say? Oh, this outlandish story?
Especially in the 90s.
You made it up.
Yeah.
You're crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So. You're a witch.
Right? So he does also talk about, there's a period, so we're going to talk after the account. I'm going to bring up some just like commonalities that are like found across these encounters with these black-eyed children. And one of them is that they like trigger our fight or flight. They like, you can't help it. You feel like you're around a predator.
Yes.
And you don't know what it is. He has stated that since the encounter, it was like a good 8 months after the encounter that he was still feeling that sense of predation. Like he was it proliferated his life.
Wow.
So I think that also really you already are a skeptic in your own brain. Nobody's gonna believe me. Yeah. And then to have that layered with being scared
all the time.
Of course you're not gonna go public with it.
Yeah.
And he again is a journalist. He's in the public eye. He's got a career to lose.
And it's what would make it worse? You just don't know, right?
Right. So he made no changes to his day-to-day life.
Wow.
What's crazy about this is after his initial encounter, he went back to where it happened the next day.
What?
Because he had to. Because he was living his
drawn
life.
To what is happening?
No, because he was living his life. Do you know where he was? So we're gonna flash back to the summer of '96.
Okay.
It's the evening.
What were you doing in summer of '96?
I was 6 years old.
I was 10.
I was 6 years old. If we're in summer, depending on where we are in the summer, I'm either 5 or 6.
I was killing it.
Because we're June BBs.
Yes, we are.
So if it's the beginning of the year, I haven't aged yet.
True.
So I'm around 5 or 6. So I couldn't tell you. Okay. Couldn't tell you what I'm doing.
Okay.
Probably I'm obsessed with Power Rangers.
Yes. Who's your favorite?
Oh, Billy. All the way.
Trini was mine.
Oh.
Yellow.
R.I.P. Trini.
Yep.
Somebody's here. Okay. So it's the summer of '96. I want to say it's around 9:06. Do they say it down here when he it's evening time. It's the sun has set, so it's nighttime. I was gonna read the account, but I don't know if I want to because it's just kind of long, and I pretty much know all that happens.
Okay.
So, he is going to pay his internet bill. Because this is the 90s. And so how are we paying bills?
You're going to the store.
We're writing a check, baby. We're taking it to the drop box. Because it's after closing time. We're taking it to the drop box. So he goes to the shopping plaza where his Camelot Internet, that was his internet service provider, his ISP.
Okay.
So he goes and there's in the shopping complex, there's also a dollar theater. There's a movie theater.
Okay.
And it was a second run theater. So it wasn't even first showings, not at that theater. This is the
afters.
After this
quarter movies.
Literally that.
Got it. Okay.
Literally that.
Okay.
Right? So it's dark. I want to say it was 9:06 that they say that this happened. It's 9:00, right? And he's in his car, windows rolled up, and he gets into the parking lot to write the check. He doesn't have the check written out. He's gonna write his check by the light of the marquee.
Okay.
So that's what he's doing. He's writing out his check when he hears a knock at his door. And he turns and there's 2 boys standing there. And there's an older boy, looks like he's in his teens.
My heart is already
Oh, girl, wait. So there's an older one who looks like he's in his teens. And then there's a younger one. And then so throughout his storytelling, Brian has dubbed the older one the spokesman.
Okay.
Because the younger one throughout this entire encounter does not talk.
Okay.
Does not talk.
So he's the toady.
Literally that.
Okay.
So there's also a lot of other, like I said, there's a lot of commonalities that we're gonna circle back in. So the older boy is wearing a hoodie, just and no brands. We're not wearing a giant Adidas. It's every time that they're wearing these clothes that they're wearing, it's kind of unsettling. They almost look homemade.
Okay.
If you will. There's no branding. There's nothing to really A lot of times your older ones are going to be wearing hoodies, jackets, always dark clothing, right?
Okay.
And the younger ones are almost always, dressed out of the time period. They look like they should be 20 years back. Petticoats.
What?
Okay. Something's guessing and maybe getting it a little off.
Okay.
Right?
That's creepy.
Right?
That's creepy in itself.
So they're sir, we want to, and that's the other thing. And this is another commonality across black-eyed kids. They have this strange maturity to them. You know, when you talk to a kid and they'll maybe stumble over the words, or they'll use a word incorrectly, or they'll use a word that isn't even relevant to that sentence. They maybe just heard it.
Yes.
And they're fidgety. They they don't stand still and talk to you.
Especially now.
This older kid got the name the name spokesman because of how eloquent he was, how calm and collected he was, how he didn't really move. Not only was he emotionless, he's
also
motionless.
stagnant. That is creepy itself.
And it's not hey, mister, we forgot. Can you take us back to our house? Like, our mom's over there, and we got some change, and we forgot. It's like a, hey, mister, you need to take us back to our house, because we forgot our, like, it's very, like, cut we know. Yeah. And it's, like, kind of, like, sales pitchy. Yeah. And it's, like, demanding. It's, like, this is what you're gonna do for us, and this is what I need you to do for us. Okay. And so, in this, like, back and forth, and Brian's like, no, like, sorry, like, and he's like, so he's acting like a little bit of, like, prompting questions, because that's the first thing that they ask, is that they want to get into Brian's car to have him drive them back home because they forgot money and they wanted to see the Mortal Kombat showing. Okay. Right? So Brian being smart, he's a journalist, aware of our surroundings. It's late at night. What's the first thing that Brian does? He looks up at the marquee to see the showing. It's like,
smart.
The last showing, like, again, let's say it's like 9:00 at night. The last showing of Mortal Kombat started at 8. We're like an hour into the movie.
You're already done.
And even if you live right around the corner, by the time we get back, this movie is gonna, like, so immediately his, like, gears are like, okay, something's
smart.
Not right. Like, I don't think I would have that. When I hear that tidbit of the story, I'm like, I'm dead. This is where I'm dead, because I don't know if I would have the.
I think about that stuff all the time. When
I don't know if I would check the marquee.
I'm clearly not.
I would just be like, oh yeah, no, he wants to go see Mortal Kombat.
No.
I'm dead.
Immediately, I would have never thought that.
It's at this point that Brian realizes that his hand is reaching up towards the lock of the car.
No.
And he stops himself, because he realized, that's not me, I'm not doing that.
My ADHD would have immediately been like, why are you wearing a petticoat? And then I wouldn't be able to get over it.
So I don't know if the kid was actually wearing a petticoat,
but I'm saying, we'll get into that. Whatever you're wearing,
we're gonna get into that. It's so interesting. Okay, so then Brian looks like he notices his hand, stops himself, so he broke eye contact with the kids, right?
Okay.
It's then when Brian reconnects with the kid that he realizes that the entirety of their eyes are black.
Oh, I hate this.
Not just the iris, like
the whole thing.
The white, I think, what is that? The sclera?
Sclera, yeah.
Black.
Ugh.
Black.
Cilia? Sclera.
Cilia,
you might be right.
The hairs, right?
Ew, hairs?
Isn't cilia the...
I don't want to know.
Find it in the show notes.
I'm going to. Eye anatomy.
So, and this is another commonality that I find really interesting in pretty much all of these accounts, and this is the only account that I'm gonna read, dictate on the show, just because there's, like, now, since there's so many accounts, and that's also why I kind of gave a little caveat at the beginning. I want to encourage everybody to read their own Black Eyed Kids stories, and kind of weigh them at your own discretion. Some of them have really outlandish claims. Yep. Some of them are just, I had this creepy encounter with this kid that came to my door in the middle of the night, and he didn't have any, like, there was nothing. Yeah. So that's the other thing. There are, like, some people say that, like, they look like they're, like, pools of liquid, that they're, like, shiny, and that they go on forever, and that you could almost go into them. Some people say that it looks like it's just, like, a void, that there's, like, nothing there. It's flat. It's, like, obsidian. So there's also kind of, like, these little, like, that's different. Are there different entities? Are they...
I hate it.
Whatever. Oh. But it's interesting that it's not right off the bat. Like, his first thought is, like...
You're, like, in a trance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that is very common in these occurrences. People are terrified, but they're engaging.
It's almost
and
like...
they're talking. And his first thought was to check Mortal Kombat, not to even register that he didn't have eyes. So that's one of the things where I'm like, magic. It's magic. It's magic that we don't understand.
It's almost like you're a siren.
And it's like they, like, mess with your perception. Yeah. And that's another thing that's really common in these sightings. They seem to, like, defy time.
True.
Or, like, they, like, appear out of nowhere.
Yep.
Then, like, you turn and they're gone.
True.
And, like, in an amount of time that they can't be. So are they defying time, or are they altering your perception? I tend to lean towards they're altering your perception, because if they can trigger this, like, innate fear, make you enthralled. His hand was moving without, he had to, like, break that himself. Like, that was, to me, that's like a test of will.
Yeah.
Like, he sounds like a very strong-willed person that was able to, like, break the thrall, if you will. You know what I mean? To me, that sounds like magic.
Yeah, you're right.
So the other thing that I find really interesting in this account, in the commonalities of the accounts, is the hoodies.
Okay.
Because in 9 times out of 10 of these accounts where a black-eyed child is wearing a hoodie, the hoodie is up. And it's almost like veiling. Yeah. Like, they don't want you to see the entirety.
That's crazy.
Like, when I hear about it, it makes me think of veiling.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, because if it's something masquerading...
It's almost like, what are you actually?
Right.
But you're appearing as a child, so it's more like you would get a response.
Right. And that's the other really interesting thing. Is that why they're appearing as children? Because it triggers... Like, what is going to make us want to help? Because, like, that's the other big thing. Like, it seems that they abide by vampire rules. There's like this there's like this ritual that needs to take place.
It's like a glamour.
You have to let them in. You have to, like, because in all of these accounts, that's what we haven't gotten to yet, because we're still hung up on him realizing that they have black eyes. In all of these accounts, these requests that they want, these demands that they make, they all hinge on being let in. Crossing a threshold, being given permission.
Gross.
And we know that's huge in any practice.
Of course.
Just saying no to something has power.
Of course.
So the fact that that's such a, like, what is it, the fulcrum of these events are whether they get, because there are accounts, we're going to talk about one.
Okay.
Of them being let in. And what happens when they're let in.
Okay.
So, we're flashing back to Brian Bethel. We're still in the parking lot. He just realized that their eyes are black. Now, we are in full panic mode. We are in full fight or flight. Pit sweaty, palm sweaty, mom spaghetti. You know what I mean? It's...
Rightfully so.
We're like, we're ready. And so, this is where they
on my sweater.
Literally, we're there. So, this is where they get demanding.
Okay.
And they start yelling. And they start saying, let us in, mister. We can't come in unless you let us.
Ew.
We're not going to hurt you, mister. We don't have it's not like we have a gun, mister.
Wouldn't you, like,
things that, like, a child would not be saying to you.
Sure, of course.
And,
not
things
then.
where it's like, why are you immediately assuming that why is the thought that you think I want you to threaten that? You know what I mean? They're like, well, we're not going to hurt you. We're not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
We don't have a gun.
Too much Mortal Kombat for you, sir.
Literally. So what does Brian do? Tears out of you. Exactly, you got it right. He tears out of the parking lot.
For sure.
He throws it in reverse. I'm pretty sure it's one of those, like, this is one of those accounts where, like, he, like, looks out of the gear shift to throw it in reverse and looks back and they're gone.
Yeah. I would be pedal to the metal.
I do know that he breaks the law going home. He floors it. He gets it home. He makes a specific reference in his initial account that as he's running back into his house, he had this purveying sense of, like, check the skies.
No way.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah. So that was Brian Bethel's, like, initial account with these black-eyed children. And for the longest time, because this story blew up when he put it online. And,
I bet.
And there were naysayers. There were people, like... But because this really, like, put it on, like, let's say it did, for all intents and purposes, it put it on the paranormal map.
Of course.
So people were, like, as much as people were, like, naysayers, people were also, like, this is the first time this has ever happened. This is the account that, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is where... So some people attribute black-eyed kids to, like, the dawn of technology.
Correct.
That it's, like, a technological thing. That there's, like... I want to do a whole episode on, like, we don't invent things, we discover them.
Okay.
So, like, what did we discover with the internet?
So, too many things,
like,
honestly.
What kind of entity is lurking in there
Yep.
that we, like, you know what I mean? We just found a means to talk to it.
Ew.
Right?
Okay.
Fun!
That's creepy.
So, getting back to I want to talk about some, like, now overall just, like, commonalities.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of things... Oh, so, sorry. Let me backtrack a little bit. A lot of people thought that, like, this was the first account.
Okay.
And then everything that happened after, like, that was the spawning event. That was, like, ground zero,
that's
right?
where they started.
That was, like, what a lot of people were thinking.
Black-eyed children came out.
Since then, there's been so much research. Because obviously this is, like... I also meant to preface this entire thing with saying I'm not bringing anything new to the black-eyed children table. I'm literally just regurgitating a bunch of information. We're offering our perspective. Like, you know what I mean? I thought the veiling thing was, like, an interesting... I've heard nobody talk about that in any of, like, in the podcast that I was listening to. Because I'll be honest, shout out to Belief Hole. Shout out to Astonishing Legends. They've done amazing podcasts. Astonishing Legends has has a 3-part series. Each episode is like 2.5 hours
Holy
long.
Crap.
Their second part is an episode with Brian Bethel. Like, they do an interview with him.
Oh, I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Oh, it's so worth listening. They do a great job.
Morbid does a really good job, too, of doing entire episodes of, like, encounters of Black
We'll
eyed
get
children.
there. We're gonna get there eventually
That's cool.
to a point. You know what I mean? So yeah, shout out to them. A lot of this info is like coming directly from them. I'm not gonna reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? And that's
it happened. It's fact.
And that's pretty much all we're doing on this podcast anyway, is like presenting stories through our lens. You know what I mean? And like providing our... Okay. So what's interesting is like, obviously there's multiple people, research coming at this from all kinds of angles.
Mm-hmm.
And there are accounts, so a lot of people also think that, like, these are, because a lot of the accounts come from America, people think that this is, like, isolated to America, that it only happens in America. But there are a lot of accounts in Europe. There are accounts in Australia of this happening.
How'd they get there?
Literally.
Where'd they come from?
Well, my thing, I don't think that they're kids.
Okay.
I think, let's save our speculation for the end of the episode.
Go ahead.
Okay, so there are accounts in America dating back to the 50s.
Oh.
There are accounts in the 70s, there are accounts in the 60s, and there are accounts in the 50s of people getting like someone knocking on their door in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And it's 2 kids.
Always 2?
And these are the commonalities. So yeah, now I'm going to get into some of the commonalities that are just like seen across, which is like what really raises the paranormal red flag for people. It's like, you know what I mean? There's like a saying about that or something. You know what I mean? Like, it happens once it happens. Like, you know, there's no coincidences when it happens. Like, when there are so many like through lines that we can make for these encounters, basically. So we talked about the clothes. The clothes are big, and it's always off. So like when they're having the encounters in the 50s, they look like they were wearing clothes from like the 30s.
Okay.
It's always kind of off. So it's like,
interesting.
It's like whatever is like masquerading is like at that current time. It's like it's picking right then and there. Like, what is going to be best to get you to help. And that ultimately seems like what the, like, they're always, they show up out of nowhere.
Okay.
It tends to be in the middle of the night, like wee hours. Sometimes it's the wee hours, like you'll get a door knock at like 2 a.m.
Do you think that's, okay. Do you want me to, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think it's because you're
perception
off?
Is open?
Because you're off in the middle of the night, you're not thinking clearly, like you're not like completely, so they could veil or glamour harder because you're off?
I don't know. I think that's a really good, interesting, because that's where I want to really get into the speculation.
Because like if somebody knocked on my door in the middle of the night, first, I'm not answering.
Absolutely not. Again,
Number 2,
that's where I'm not dead in the story, because I'm not answering the door.
But my ADHD would be like, my anxiety level would be like heightened.
What's on the other side of the door?
Yes. Or like my brain would be going a million miles an hour.
Yeah.
Whereas some people would be like extra sleepy. Like
some people wouldn't even think twice and just answer the door.
Exactly.
We don't have crime around here. We sleep with the door unlocked.
No, not
unhinged behavior.
Basically.
Unhinged behavior. So they're always they kind of just like seemingly like nobody's just like, you don't see them walk off.
Yeah.
They don't just, you know what I mean? They don't saunter up to you like, "Hey, mister."
Trick
you know
or
what I
treat.
mean? Like you turn and they're there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the
gross.
It's like the horror movie trope. And some of this stuff is a little tropey too, where people are like,
yep.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
That sounds very horror movie-ish. I turn a corner and you're gone.
But how do horror movies start?
Just saying, based in fact, right? So then we have going back to the clothes a little bit. There's no like I said, there's no like, we're not wearing like a SpongeBob hoodie. They're like, you know what I mean? It's very nondescript. It's very plain. It's very drab. Some people say that it looks like they're like toned differently, like they're sepia toned. They're like, like they stepped out of like a black and white movie, or like their color
I've heard
is
that.
off.
Yeah.
Or like somebody took the saturation and like dropped it all the way down. Like something doesn't. And again, it's like something's trying to mimic and can't get it quite right.
Okay.
And is that what the eyes are? Like, you can't, like, eyes are the window of the soul. Is that the hardest thing to trick? Is that the hardest thing to mimic?
Well,
because if you don't have a soul, how do you mimic a soul?
Or everybody's eyes are different. There is no 2 eyes that are the same, right? So, like, how do you mimic somebody's eyes when you don't have
know what
sense?
an eye?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where it's just like so...
I hate it!
Literally, yeah. So there's this sense of dread. There's this pervading sense of like, I am in trouble. They trigger that fight or flight response in us. But there's also this like thrall that they put people under.
Yeah.
So it's like you're paralyzed with fear almost. But that's the other interesting...
It's like a spell.
Yeah, right? Yeah. It's like a trance.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's another commonality is it's not... You don't open the door and it's like you're looking at black eyes. Like, none of the accounts...
You don't even notice it.
None of the accounts say that. You know what I mean?
Because why would you open the door?
Literally. And I feel like if I did open the door and I saw black eyes, I would immediately shut the door. You know what I mean? It's it's like they have this back and forth.
Hypnosis.
And something happens where like they gain a little bit of cognizance, they gain a little bit of wherewithal. Something happens where then it clicks in their brain. Something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And what is not right? Oh, this kid has black eyes. Like, you'd think that would be, like, the first thing that you would notice.
But it's your hypnosis.
And it's like a commonality, like, across these occurrences.
Okay.
So weird. There's no documented cases of physical attacks. Nobody has been physically harmed by one of these. They don't attack you.
Yep. It's a mind
That's
thing.
not to say that there haven't been physical ramifications after encounters with black-eyed children.
Ew.
There's an encounter in the 50s.
Okay.
Where a husband and wife, I believe it was the wife, started having... So this is another commonality across black-eyed kids. Not always, but frequently they will appear in the dreams of people that they're going to interact with in person.
Yes.
And sometimes they're like prophetic dreams. You will have dreams of them leading up to the encounter.
Yes.
This husband and wife, I forget their name, and I didn't write it down. Kudos to me for knowing all this from memory, though.
Seriously.
I'm literally just, like, glancing at reference.
If you can see Kyle right now, he's just going at it. He had no reference whatsoever.
Literally. So it's a husband and wife.
Black-eyed children.
In the 50s. This wife starts dreaming of these black-eyed kids. And at one point, one of them, it's always the older one that speaks. The older one even specifically says to her, your husband's gonna die. But, like, says it in a way of, like, we're gonna take your husband. Your husband, like, you know what I mean? Said it in a very, like...
Oof. It
wasn't like a, hey, cherish him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of just like
a threat.
Yeah, very that.
Okay.
Because remember, this is how they are. They're very... This is what's gonna happen. Even if I'm asking you a question, it's... You know what I mean? It's with an end result.
Yeah.
It's like... Can I come in to use your phone? You're going to let me come in to use your phone.
I'm going to come in, yeah.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Right. That's the other weird thing. Sometimes when they're, like, making requests, so, like, there are accounts in the 70s of people answering their door and the kids asking to use the telegraph.
That's wild.
So it's like things not...
Adding up.
Not quite, like, adding up, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump back to this couple in the 50s. Sorry, a little bit all over the place.
You're fine.
So, wife starts having these dreams. She has that dream. Then it happens. They have an encounter. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
There's a ring, a knock on the door. They answer.
Black-eyed children.
Black-eyed children.
Ew.
They want to come inside. They want to use the phone.
Yeah. Rotary phone. Got it.
Guess what? She lets them in.
Why?
She lets them in. So they come in. And you'd think this is it, right? This is the...
Why?
And this is where also there's 2 schools of thought as to why there's no documented physical...
Okay.
And what's the key word there?
Documented.
Documented.
Yeah.
Because for all we know, there are physical attacks.
Are they either...
And no one's around to tell the story.
Exactly. Or are they too traumatized?
Literally.
Or is it a trance...
Where they don't
realize.
No, because guess what happened once they were allowed into the house?
What?
Time slip. They wake up. They wake up the next day in their beds.
But they remember what happened.
They remember letting kids into their
happened.
house. They remember letting kids into their house. But then nothing else after.
Oh.
And then guess who suddenly wakes up with a giant brain tumor?
The husband.
And guess who ends up dying? Of severe brain cancer.
No way.
Soon after this encounter.
And, like, why? Like, what is the why?
So a lot of times, another commonality that people will experience with them is this ozone smell, which is funny that you said that earlier. There's this, like, almost, like, burny smell around them. Are they emitting radiation?
Or
is there some kind of, like, energy this thing is putting off that it can't control?
Or what about the concept of people sell their souls and they're collecting souls and it's like hellions. Literally demon portals.
Literally that.
Ew.
So, not only are there just, like, accounts in America dating back to, like, the 50s.
Of course.
We're also going to talk a little bit about the Iroquois.
Okay.
and how there are, I believe they call it the Otcon.
Okay.
And what they believe, so the way that they believe it, it's a very like, when I heard about the concept, I was like, I feel like I'm watching an episode of Charmed. Just because, and you're going to know exactly what I mean when I say this. Okay. There's like a belief that like a child is like a blank slate and they could be swayed either way. Mm-hmm. And that the Otcon is this like purveying darkness that can like slip into a child.
Yes.
And basically possess them.
Sure.
And it happens a lot, or when it happens, it's at a time of distress when this maybe child is like abandoned in the woods.
Yep.
Is orphaned.
Yep.
And it's just like taken over with this darkness. And what is the way that it is portrayed in Iroquois culture is as a black-eyed child. And this is dating back to, we're talking like pre-colonial, right? So don't tell me Brian Bethel was the seminal case.
So are there...
When we have Native American tribes talking about
So are there
children.
Visuals for that?
There are cave depictions of, these young, small humans, blacked out eyes.
I mean, and that would explain petticoat, right?
That would explain a lot.
Okay.
Okay, so this can also be found in Scandinavian culture in something called the Mealings.
Okay.
And it's spelled, I do have it written down, because we're thinking like American. It's spelled Mylinges.
Interesting.
Right? And then so these are like, in Scandinavian folklore, these are some of the most vengeful spirits you're going to come across. And it's the spirits of unwanted children. Children killed by their parents.
Oh?
Yeah. So a very vengeful spirit.
Wow.
But again, depicted as a child with black eyes.
Okay.
And we're talking, that's pre-Christian.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Scandinavians, right, for this whole concept, and you might not know this, but when we're saying unwanted children, are we talking like immediate unwanted children, or because these entities are older, depicted as older children, is it that they died later?
I think I know what you're getting at.
Yeah.
I don't believe that this is like terminated.
Well, I don't even think they did that, but I mean, like, would they be...
I think this is like, I have 7 kids and I just had an 8th and I cannot afford to... Yeah. We're talking, this is, you know what I mean?
Of course.
And I think it's that 8th child that we threw off the cliff.
So, okay. So it could have been later in life. So these could have been the actual age.
I think where the Iroquois was more of like a matter of happenstance.
Yeah.
Like maybe this child just got left in the woods. Maybe this, like, they were out hunting with their parents and their parents just got killed and then they're like, eh. The Scandinavian seems like a much more like...
just hard times.
Vengeful, like that ghost, that spirit is like pissed.
Yeah.
Because you...
Yeah, rightfully so.
You did, yeah.
Sure.
But we're bringing this up just to make the point that, like, black-eyed children are, like...
All cultures.
It does not come with the dawn of technology. It is not just a creepypasta thing. There's definite weight to these encounters. You listen to people tell these encounters, and you can tell... Again, with most creepypastas, you can tell when, you know what I mean, there's salt to a story, and you can tell that these people encountered something that really... shook them to their core.
That is wild.
Yeah, so now I want to get into just like a little bit of like speculation.
Okay.
Because I just think there's a lot of people think that they're aliens. People think that it's something masquerading as. People think it's like I caution to say skinwalker. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many different, like, is it a spirit? Like, there are accounts of, like, in the 50s when they came into the house. Like, she remembers, like, interaction of, like, him maybe, like, picking something up. Or, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's enough memory, like... Yeah. But then she doesn't remember, like, the actual, like, well, what did they do in my house? When did they leave? What did they do to me? You know what I mean? It's kind of just, like,
I mean, the alien concept may not be that far off, right? Because they're basically abducting. Because if you don't remember time lapses, like, what happens? What kind of abduction is that?
The other thing that I find really interesting, so I'm, again, of, like, kind of, like, 2 schools of thought. To me, it's either, I definitely think it's something masquerading. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're children with black eyes. Like, I don't think that whatever people are seeing, I don't think it was ever
It's
human.
like the trance that they just need to be that way.
I think it's portraying, like, if you had an encounter with a black-eyed kid, and I was your neighbor...
Don't put that on me.
Okay. If your neighbor was having an encounter with a black-eyed kid and you opened your door, I'd be curious to see what you would see standing on the front. There's no stories like that. And that's why it's so interesting to me, the alter of perception.
So there is no stories of two people together seeing the same thing.
There are, the husband and the wife. There are. But there's no, like, outsider voyeur. Like, I'm not part of that experience and I'm watching it. Okay. There's nobody removed from the situation. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that lends to the, like, if you're the only thing seeing me, and this is the thing that I find really interesting, because it seems like it's just, I feel like the understanding, quote unquote, that we have of magic is very rudimentary. Sure. We don't know its full capabilities. Yeah. We don't know the mechanisms of this universe. So to me, it's it sounds like maybe something that has a better grasp on how this universe works. And what I mean by that is, like, have you ever listened to any, like, Carl Sagan talks of, like, circle world, or, like, so if we lived in a 2-dimensional world and somebody put a 3D object in our world, we're only going to see it as the points that are touching our 2-dimensional world, right? That's like a very quick overview. I encourage anybody who has not listened to a Carl Sagan
gonna listen to that
talk, please go do it. He is a very fascinating person, but he does this flatland thing where he, like, explains everything like we were living in a 2-dimensional. But then it's so interesting to then put it into, like, a 3-dimensional concept, because to me that's what it reads as. It reads as something that knows how to, I don't caution to even say alter our perception, but, like, do things that we just don't know how to do or even capable of doing. And from our limited viewpoint, it looks like they're coming out of nowhere. It looks like they're, you know what I mean? Like, we don't even know, like, what the mechanism is behind why I can't remember what exactly happened. Yeah. Is that the same mechanism that's making me see a little kid in front of me? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a lot. Is that why the veiling is part of it? Like,
or why there's a second one that doesn't talk?
There's a lot of it that just reads as, like, magic to me, but, like, magic that we just, like, that's just beyond our understanding.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Or is it because it's so ancient that it, like, you know what I mean? Like...
Or it's so powerful.
Right. I don't like the alien
theory.
I believe that it could. I mean, I don't know what they could be. Maybe it's an alien, because that's a big, like, topic in the alien abduction community, is screen memories. Yes. I'm taking you out of your room and I'm going to do these things to you, but when I put you back, the only thing that you're going to remember is getting up and going to the bathroom. Or getting up and seeing an owl sitting outside of your window. Yes. You know what I mean? So screen memories are huge. Yep. So I don't know. There's so many interesting facets to these black-eyed kids. I didn't want to sit here and just, like, read encounter after encounter
but that's
after
so
encounter.
Cool.
So I encourage everybody to, you know, research the topic on your own, at your own discretion.
Oof. I'm going to be up all night.
Don't let anything in.
First, I'm going to be up all night doing creepypastas, because that just blows my mind.
So many. No Sleep is a great...
Do you remember, like, the era of, like, fan fiction? That's what creepypastas remind me of. Like, fan fictions, right? Where you're like, if I used to write Buffy fan fiction in high school. Did you? Yes! Do you still have it?
No, because you know where I used to write it all?
Where?
On MySpace.
Shut.
Because I used to be part.
Your MySpace?
Listen, I used to be part of this fan fiction role play community where we would all make MySpaces as the character that you were role playing as, because I was that much of a loser.
No, that's not a loser thing. I think that's amazing.
And then I would get on and I would role play from that character's perspective, like I was that person.
Up.
Oh, it was so fun. I used to love doing it.
We should do that now.
I literally, like, have tried to, like, put out feelers to, like, find the people that I used to, like,
we should do a Charmed one,
yeah, I literally used to RP Charmed and Buffy characters.
I am obsessed with that. Yeah. I wish we could hack your MySpace right now.
But see, that's the sad thing. Most of
it's gone.
It's gone. It's all gone.
Because it was, like, coded in a way that, like,
they tried to do, like, a data transfer or something, and I don't know. Part of me is glad that it's gone.
I'm not. Part of me is so upset that it's gone, because that sounds phenomenal. My, like, high school, that was... fanfiction was a huge thing for us, but it was, like, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Hanson, and you would, like, be like, I was married to Taylor, and, like, this was our
There's a movie that just came out with I want to say it's like Sandra Bullock or something, where the whole concept of the movie is the mom goes to like a concert, and it's like a fictionalized like One Direction, right? And then mom like hits it off with like one of the like singers like in the boy band, and like starts this like thing with like the guy in the band.
That sounds creepy.
It's a One Direction fan fiction.
Shut up.
It's a One Direction fan fiction
so somebody
that they
found
like,
that online
that
and
they like rewrote and like made it into like a Twilight is a
you could have been famous.
You know Twilight is a fan fiction.
Yes, I did know that. But you could have been
famous. No, 50 Shades of Grey is a fan fiction. A Twilight fan fiction.
See, that's the type of instinct that I thought I was
writing. But then when they made it big, they like switched. They just switched the names.
You could have been famous.
I could have been. No.
You're famous now. We have a podcast.
It was no new IP. I was literally just role playing as Buffy in Sunnydale.
I think everybody would want to listen or read that. I think everybody would want to read that.
It's messy.
I believe that.
I wish that they still existed.
Seriously. I think that's so cool.
This was a good one though, right?
Yes, I love this one.
Now you see why I was so excited to like talk about it.
This was a good one.
Yeah,
I like this one a lot.
And like perfect for Halloween.
This should be the Halloween episode.
I get that the encounter that I told you was like it happened in a parking lot, but like when I say a lot of these encounters happen in like the
random places,
they happen at people's homes.
No,
they knock on your door in the middle of the night.
No,
and that's the thing. They want in. They just want to use the phone. They want to. Please, can you just help me?
Gross.
Yeah, we're like preying on a sense of like help, which is also like if it is something masquerading.
If you ever show up at my house in the middle of the night, it's a no.
Brian Bethel is also a really interesting person to like.
I'm gonna have to listen to that one.
He has a couple. He has another encounter that happened like later in his life that he talks about. But he has this one encounter, which I'm excited to like. I'll probably touch on his encounter, like what happened. But I'm gonna do a whole episode on. He had he was a kid and he like saw a television program that was like. These like off Muppets that had human teeth and were like trying to get him to come into the TV.
What?
Yeah. So that's another like, cause like a lot of these a lot of times they're also referred to as BEKs. It's like
human
the acronym.
teeth.
Literally. So a lot of times these people that have these black-eyed kids experiences have other like weird things that have happened them in their lives where it's like, are they just open to these kind of things?
Well, and that's like so there's a lot of like controversy around, like abductions. I know I keep going back to aliens, but they say like it's like a lightning strike.
Yeah.
Once you've done it, you've opened it, and then it comes back.
That's why when people hear because most people know Brian Bethel for his black-eyed kids thing, so then they hear the Muppet story and they're like,
oh, this guy.
Oh, okay. I see.
So you're a journalist.
Yeah, literally that. But yeah, no, his Muppet story is like, because just imagine like off-brand Muppets with human teeth.
Just listening to that
trying to
freaks
get you
me out, because there's my Fraggle collection right there, and that freak.
And they're like, hey kids, come into the TV with me. Like, no. If
I ever saw something with human teeth that shouldn't have human teeth, it would be a wrap.
There's another. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with one because I just have this is why I've been ready to start a podcast because I've been ready to start a podcast. Screen memory. There's this girl who has this memory, right? Of a big. She's asleep in her bed, and her closet door opens, and Big Bird walks out, hands her a chapstick, and says, "Have some. It'll make you feel good."
Oh.
And when she woke up the next day,
she
had a half-bitten thing of chapstick in bed with her. Now, she did say that was like her thing as a kid. She loved to nibble on chapstick, but maybe
you should stop nibbling on chapstick because you're seeing Big Bird. I would never sleep again.
Have some chapstick. It'll make you feel good.
I would never
Terrifying.
sleep again.
Heard that on the Belief Hole. Love them.
Oh, I hate
the Brothers Belief Hole are great. Go check them out. Fantastic story. Thank you for joining us on this premiere episode.
We appreciate you. Hope you sleep well.
Sleep well. We are on Instagram. You can find us.
We'll do TikTok soon.
Yes. Coming to a streaming platform near you. Like, subscribe, leave us a comment, a 5-star review. If you have a creepy story, we would love to hear it.
Happy Halloween.
Don't let any black-eyed kids through the door.
Creepypastas. Bye, guys.
Bye.
A Semi-Charmed Kind of Podcast is hosted by Ashley Williams and Kyle Ugis. Music credits by Chauncey Fortune and art by Decay Decor. Keep listening and keep it cryptid.
Wrapped in fragile hands, clinging on a mound in the dead of night. much to die. So hurts to live without, hurts to